back to the Single Parent Reset Show. Today, we're tackling a topic that's flying under the radar for so many parents, especially single parents raising girls. Here's what you need to know. First, your daughter's period isn't just a monthly event. It's actually a key sign of her overall health. When it goes missing, it's not just inconvenient, it's a red flag. Second, more girls than you think are struggling with this issue, and they don't all fit the stereotype. Even healthy, high-achieving girls are dealing with missing periods, often silently and alone. And third, the way we talk about food, weight, and achievement at home has a major influence on our daughter's hormonal health, even if we don't realize it. So today we're going to break it all down in a way that's practical, relatable, and hopeful. My guest today is Dani Sheriff, holistic HA practitioner. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. Board certified functional nutrition counselor and a fertility awareness practitioner. And she's helped many families reverse the effects of hypothalamic amenorrhea. She's here to equip you with exactly what you need to know and what to look out for to protect your daughter's long-term health. Let's dive in. Welcome, Dani, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tess, and thank you for the work you're doing, just putting a podcast out there to help people who need more support with parenting parent. I know I need that, as I don't have a lot of help in my world as a mom, so just a big thank you for the work that you're doing too.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Okay, so we're going to get right in to our episode. So let's frame this up and tee this up for everyone. Let's talk about why this really matters. So let's start with kind of the basics, like what is, and I mentioned it, you're a holistic HA practitioner. I didn't say the whole world, but hypothalamic amenorrhea. What is it, and what is missing your period? What is that? Let's talk a little bit about that from the beginning.
It's a big, scary word, but honestly, in a nutshell, it's a very normal, natural process that happens when you are under eating and over exercising and you lose your period. And I think we all know someone, if not, it's happened to us at some stage, where we've missed a period or two during certain times. And if you look back at those times, there were probably times of maybe high stress, a lot of busyness, under eating, going to the gym a lot. And we are just in a time now. I mean, we've been in a time for quite a few decades, actually, where the pressure on women to be everything and do everything is resulting in this issue where our hormones are just going down, 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 while our requirements to be socially accepted go up, up, up. And this is honestly starting to affect young women at a very young age now.
Wow. Okay. So thank you for that. Helps to kind of pull it around to understand what it is. All right. So you mentioned that this is often misunderstood. What are the biggest myths and stereotypes around hypothalamic amenorrhea, or missing a period, that parents might unknowingly believe?
Yeah, that your child or that a woman has to have an eating disorder, has to have been anorexic or be some kind of crazy high level athlete like a gymnast in order for this type of thing to happen, and that it doesn't matter, that it is a an optional extra on the body, like when you go to the car dealership and you're like, let's throw in some floor mats. Like, no, you really need it, and it's not something that you can just opt out of for your kids' long-term health. And we're seeing young women more and more already with osteoporosis and all types of cognitive issues, and it's really a slippery slope.
Okay, so why is this issue showing up more frequently today, even in girls who seem like totally normal and healthy?
So I can't actually confirm if it's showing up more or if we're just hearing about it. Right? Because now we have the internet, and I'm out there and I'm talking on YouTube and on podcasts, and they're coming to me, and I get weekly multiple messages and emails from girls saying, hi, I'm 15, I'm 16, I'm 17, and I have this issue. So I honestly, like, having grown up in the early 2000s, I cannot, it had to have been happening, and because that was a crazy time. But it's just that pressure that I spoke about, and we're on social media younger and younger, and we're seeing women with these body ideals, if you will, that are actually, first of all, often fake. But it's priority number one. It's priority number one for a lot of girls up the social hierarchy
Mhm.
ladder, and it's just becoming more and more important to them and important above all else. And that's why we're seeing it.
Yeah. So I want to get a sense of like, I want to help parents recognize kind of these early flags at home and some of the warnings. So what are the subtle signs that a parent might miss that could indicate their daughter is at risk for HA,
Yeah.
which is hypothalamic amenorrhea, a missed period?
Yes. So it's tough. Really, truly, we need to be talking to our girls all the time. You know, it's a vital
Mm-hmm.
sign. We consider the menstrual cycle a vital sign. So finding ways to get comfortable with asking if they have it. If you feel uncomfortable, you might have to start real small, like, hey, do you need me to grab you any
Mm-hmm.
tampons? But some early signs would be just noticing that they're exercising a lot and they're dieting. Like they're doing the two things right out the gate needs
Mm-hmm.
to be maybe not necessarily a red flag, but a sign that a conversation needs to happen ASAP. Just like when you start seeing that your kids are reaching that age where they're interested in the opposite sex and it triggers a certain conversation to happen, same thing. When you start seeing signs of your girl developing, you know, maybe an unhealthy, like how they look, feeling bad about how they look and starting to take action, that would be a good sign, a good time to do it. If you feel like it's coming from a negative place, especially.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. What about how can parents tell the difference between like normal teen behavior, which, a lot of girls in our culture will start getting focused, particularly around, I think, middle school, really maybe even sometimes late elementary school about how they look and all that. And what are these? So how do we tell the difference between like normal teen behavior and early signs of hormonal imbalance or menstrual suppression?
Mm. So that's also a good question because in your early teens up into your very early 20s, your menstrual cycle is actually pretty irregular. It takes a long time and it
Mhm.
doesn't so we don't have this expectation that teens have 28-day cycles as much as we do someone in their 20s.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something that needs a close look at. And I'm not saying that all parents need to take this 100% into their hands because actually the level of review that takes is a
Mhm.
lot. But I would just advise everyone to be, when something's not characteristic of your child, and
Mhm.
when something is coming from a place of um it's coming from a place of trying to change yourself,
Yeah.
and you're not eating with the family anymore, or you're asking for this not that, or something that they used to love they're saying no to, or they're going to the gym, which is totally fine, but maybe now they're going more and more, or they're
Mhm.
working out in the morning before they're having breakfast, and they're doing these things that add up to depletion.
Yeah.
Maybe they're starting to eat a lot of low calorie, low fat things. And all of those things individually are not this big deal. But when you start seeing them all happening, that's one of the bigger signs. And at the end of the day, if they're all happening at the same time, there's a really good chance that they're down, things are down regulating, and
Right.
that it has an impact.
Yeah. So like if you see it and that it is tricky to kind of understand like what's normal teen behavior because yes, they're going to get moodier. Yes, there's hormones going like it's hard to kind of know. But to put these together where if you've got a teen, and I'm thinking a teen girl who is starting to really focus around her body, dieting, even though she clearly is not overweight.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of focus around, I know social media pushes that like a certain image that is just really hard and it's often not healthy. So if you've got kind of a girl who's continuing to exercise, starting to diet, who's not overweight, like that kind of thing and that kind of talk, and it becomes there's multiple pieces of this you see. I would think right that would be more than just the normal teen behavior.
Yes, and you'll find usually a bit of neuroses starts to develop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
freaking out. I can't eat that. I'm not, words like I can't, I
Yeah.
won't,
Right.
when it's not an allergy or intolerance or
Yeah.
something like that, is a sign,
Mm-hmm.
because we do need to have that healthy behavior. Like you should be able to go to your sister's birthday party and have a piece of cake. And when
Mm-hmm.
they're starting to, show up to Thanksgiving dinner and controlling all of their food, this
Yeah.
is a really early sign of neurosis around food. And there, I mean, I could talk all day about the types of habits and behaviors, and I'm more than happy to, but yeah, it's just like when they're starting to do something that seems a little extra,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a delicate situation, but you know that it's a normal teen behavior is you eat the cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That makes sense. So what specific questions should a parent ask their daughter without making her feel like interrogated or self-conscious?
you know that's tough for women at any age. I don't think it even,
Yes.
like we don't, commenting on how the way a woman eat is, I don't recommend it honestly at almost any stage. It has to be very delicate.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing one should be doing is, first of all, leading by example. We do not want any hypocrisy going on because your teen will
Mm-hmm.
call you out on that right away. So really just checking in and offering food, offering support in it, but presenting as if you're not the one dieting either. Like you
Yep.
can't be also exhibiting those behaviors and then talking to someone about it. Once you're not exhibiting those behaviors as well, I would say asking them how their cycle is going. If that's do you have it? I think we need to normalize women asking women personally.
Mm-hmm.
So, how's your period? Do you have it?
Mm-hmm.
It may seem totally out of the blue if your kid's 15, 16, and this is the first time you're asking, but explaining that what you just learned,
Mm-hmm.
the menstrual cycle is actually really important, was the first thing someone ever said to me, right? Was, oh,
Yep.
we
Yep.
worry when a woman is missing her cycle. And it just plants a seed, right? So I think
Yep.
the best thing to do is to plant seeds by your own behavior, talking about your menstrual cycle, asking them from a place of curiosity, not a place of accusation
Mm-hmm.
or assumption, and then just like leaning into a collaborative conversation about it
Yep.
versus trying to tell them what's up.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, essentially, one is modeling. We got to model the behavior that we would like.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably healthy, eating habits and exercise habits and all that kind of stuff. And, but, yeah, having, especially for a mom with an earlier, like a tween who's just starting, letting them know that this is like, right. This is something you're going to be managing and dealing with and having your most of your adult life, a good chunk of it for many decades right now. And I'd like for us to have like a conversation about this. I know it kind of feels weird at different times, but I'd like to check in kind of that you almost like preface it. I could see that being an avenue of coming in and just letting it's a health thing. And we just want to check in on that. So you had mentioned dieting, intense exercise, and aesthetic like pressure, like, right, from like what we're looking at social media. So how can parents recognize these patterns before they become harmful?
I mean, it's everywhere. I remember growing up in a great environment and still this happened to me, right? So online shopping, mannequins, the way models look when the clothes don't look like that is an early seed that women are subconsciously taking in.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice her friend group and that they're talking a lot about that kind of thing, or anyone brings up the F word, fat, right? Anyone
Mm-hmm.
brings up,
Yep.
oh, I need to, insert body change that needs to happen here.
Yep.
The
Yep.
the early signs is the language. So
Yep.
the language needs to stop. So as a mother of a daughter myself, it's very important that I never talk about myself or other people in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Judgments about how other people look, classic
Yes.
teen behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
But cutting that, when you start noticing that those things are picking up, there is no way that the process hasn't begun, and the process will happen
Yep.
because that is the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So that education piece around you you have to balance it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
how
Yeah.
it's not inherently healthy to just be thin, which is this belief that we have, right? To be thin
Yep.
is to be healthy. And girls need to know the difference between the two. So when you start seeing that early adoption of like thin is good, which is going to be 99% of girls, that's when you can, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
That is the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. And it will definitely, I think you're right that it's definitely going to happen. Like you can't, unless you live, you're really, like removed from mainstream society.
Well, I
It's
can
going to
tell you
happen.
that
Even with the internet, it's going to
this
happen.
is a first world country problem.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, we've
Yeah.
done some mission trips and things to Kenya. We don't
Yeah.
have these issues in these
Yeah.
other populations, which I think is very interesting, because something else that goes along with this type of girl,
Mm-hmm.
is perfectionistic, high
Yeah.
achieving,
Yeah.
right? I've got to get good grades, or I have to do well in sport, or I
Mm-hmm.
have to be disciplined. And that is definitely a trait that we see in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So your girl who is, so there are probably some people listening who are like, this doesn't sound like anything that would ever happen to my daughter. She may not have those personality traits. Whereas some people are like, I can absolutely see my daughter
Yeah.
going down that path because she's so meticulous and disciplined,
Right.
and has that perfectionistic tendency.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to kind of switch a little bit and go towards kind of encouraging proactive education on menstrual health. So how early should parents start educating their daughters about menstrual health, and how can they do that without feeling awkward or overwhelming? We sort of touched on that just a little bit
Yeah.
ago.
Well, I mean, I'll start real young right now. So like anyone who has a parent of a small child, or, I have a daughter, she's 3. And
Mm-hmm.
just because of my line of work, she already knows. You know what I mean? She already knows
Mm-hmm.
about periods. She'll go in there.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to put her tampons in. I'm just like, listen, that's, you don't have to do that. But she understands that mom bleeds,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the beginning. And so if you can start early, I don't think there's anything taboo or weird about that. And then it will be so easy for you later. But if
Yeah.
your kid is now over the age of like 9 or something, and now it's going to have to become a conversation, just like I said with the birds and the bees talk, I think this one is, this is actually a really great uh, segue prerequisite for that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, because it
Yeah.
explains how babies are made.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that having that conversation with girls about this is what happens and here's why it happens,
Yeah.
right? And you see cervical mucus at this time of month, and here's its job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has a role in this whole process of life.
Yeah.
And you need your period for this, and you know what, it's
Mm.
linked to your bone health and your cognitive health, and and just
Right.
really normalizing that, just like how we say,
Yeah.
you need your vegetables,
Yeah.
like you need your menstrual cycle. And so I think just segueing it in is like, it's actually a really fascinating topic. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, the parent needs to learn about it herself, and there are many women who actually have no idea how the menstrual cycle works all the way through to their adult life. So first thing they need to go and do is learn about that.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know, it is fascinating. And then it's just like a cool facts conversation.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is a normal part of life. I agree with you that it is fascinating. I probably learned. I mean, I knew enough as I was growing up and going through my 20s and 30s. But by the time, and I had a child very late in life at near 43, so I was 42. It was in the years prior to having a baby that I really deep dived, and then it was just like so cool. It's amazing, the mucus, and then it's roll and what and at that point I'm trying to get pregnant, so I was really in deep, knowing my own cycle. What does that mean? And then I'm just going to put a quick like aside out here for if there are parents who also have sons. Right about that time when they learn about the birds and the bees and where babies are coming from, it's going to be late. Most likely it's usually around late elementary school. I started having those conversations on and off with my son, just more like I knew what he was learning. And then I'd kind of, just reframe it for him, just so he has the understanding and knowledge, the basic knowledge of like how babies are made, all that kind of stuff. Especially we had some conversations in middle school. And I also normalize, even not that long ago, my own cycle, something was going on. And I even, told him that, just so I want him to have a feel of like, this is a normal part of female's life. And I want you to know as a, young man growing up, that it's okay to talk about with your
Oh, it's totally,
partner, friends, whoever, like you could. They're not doing this now out at school and high school, but you can,
When a
you know?
man understands a menstrual cycle, he can actually better understand why his significant other or his sister or whoever it
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Or mother.
behaving the way that she
Yes.
is at any
Yeah.
given time.
Exactly. All right. I've got I'm going to do a two-parter if you can answer this, but what does a healthy cycle look like and what should girls expect at different phases? And then can you break down how parents can teach their daughters to track their cycles and understand ovulation?
In a young girl, a menstrual cycle could be somewhere between 24 days to 32 days. As you get older, 24 would be considered a little short, but in this early stage, that's about good. Your cycle is broken into 4 phases, and I recommend everyone go and learn this. Grab a pen and paper or just Google it because it's hard to memorize. But you've got your bleed, you've got your follicular phase, you've got your ovulation, and you've got your luteal phase. And then you go right back into your bleed, and the cycle continues. And all of those have different parameters. So a bleed of 3 to 7 days are actually all considered normal, depending on flow. A follicular phase of about 14 days in the average woman, but when you're younger, that might actually happen more around 10. And then a luteal phase of well above 11 days. So 11 days between the time a child or a person, a woman, ovulates to when they bleed is like the bare minimum. The gold standard would be 16. To teach this, you must know how to do it. So it's very hard to teach if you do not have a menstrual cycle, though many parents are phasing out of that time in their life, but it's never too late to learn if you have a menstrual cycle, and you can if you don't, but it's a little bit harder. You start tracking your own temperature. There's so many resources online. I have a resource for you guys for teaching teens, but you'll start taking your temperature every day in the morning. And before you ovulate, it should be around 97.4 to 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit. And one day you'll take your temperature and it'll be up at 98 and above. And it should stay up there for about 2 weeks. And then the day it comes back down, you bleed again. So you'll see that pattern over and over again. And that's how we confirm ovulation. And we use this as a natural birth control as well. So if done correctly to full efficacy, it is just as effective as any kind of contraception. So anyone who's passionate about keeping their child off the pill, which is a whole other conversation, but this is a very valuable tool, but it does require quite a bit of focused education.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I did to get pregnant very late in life. I did it naturally. I actually got pregnant the first time because
Amazing.
I
See?
spent 6 to 7 months ahead just tracking my body, the temperature, all that. Anyway, I know that's a whole nother episode, but anyway, I'm really happy to hear that. So let's talk about the parents' role in prevention. So empowering parents with language and kind of behaviors that support hormonal health. How does a parent's own relationship with food and body image affect their daughter, even if unintentionally? And then and this is kind of a dual question, but what are examples of seemingly like harmless, I can imagine this, harmless comments parents make that could actually fuel body insecurity of food restriction?
Yeah. And I'm sure it won't surprise you that many of my clients,
Mm-hmm.
the issues stem back to their mother and the things they used to say. And many parents seem to think that what they say doesn't have an effect, but it has more of an effect than anything anyone else could possibly say. So when you're body checking, when you're calling yourself names, when you're saying you don't want to get in a photograph, when you're feeding everyone a certain meal, but you're not having as much or you're eating something separately or different, everyone else is getting the chicken thighs, but you're having the chicken breast, or everyone's having a big bowl of pasta, but you're having a little bowl and then like a big bowl of leafy greens, and you think no one is noticing that, right? So it's actually beyond important for her and him, because there is a male version of this problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is very important for them and it's important for you. So they're observing and they're seeing. I was fortunate that my mother had a wonderful relationship with food where I don't recall her ever saying anything like that. And unfortunately, it was more about when I got into high school and in that crowd. But I mean, I got to go my entire up until the end
Mhm.
of elementary school without this really being on my radar. And like that's a
Yeah.
gift.
That really is. It is. And I think if you are, I have that now in my home where I'm eating a little bit differently than a 16-year-old boy who's
Yeah, because you're
literally just
premenopause.
hit puberty late and actively growing like a lot. He's just eating volumes and more of almost practically anything. I'm not. He's aware that I'm in my 50s
Yeah.
and I'm also postmenopause and really trying to take care of bone health, muscle. So I'm doing some things a little differently. He's aware of that, and so I'm open, right? You have open conversations, and I'm talking about that. So when our meals look different, he knows why I'm having like extra protein and less carbs
Yes.
right now because we are in completely different places, and I normalize that. That's okay. This is what I'm dealing with. You're just actively growing, and that's okay. It's all normal. It's all part
Yeah,
of
he
life.
probably can't eat enough food. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
just, yeah, a growing teen boy versus his mum
yeah,
who's, leaving her reproductive years
right,
is a totally different. And yeah, if you just explain that as it is, but without context, you know, they're just going to put together like, oh, my mum just diets, right? And
right.
so having those conversations are so important.
Yep.
So
I
important.
totally agree with you. Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So let's do, I've got some questions, just kind of our final takeaways here. What's one small change a parent could make this week to support their daughter's hormonal health? And if a parent suspects a missed period or a cycle issue, where should she go first? Like the doctor, the specialist, resources?
Ask her how her period is. You wouldn't get the courage. Preface it with, I know this is a weird question, but I learned something and I want to ask you about it. And ask it like with them, like be collaborative with them on it. Like, what do you think about this? So that it's not this annoying accusation from your
Mhm.
parent. Um, and what was the second part?
Second part is just like if they suspect something like a missed period or cycle, where should they go first?
Well, I made something for you guys. So if you suspect it, I have a website that I've created for you that's just for parents and teens to just give you a breakdown of everything we talked about today, what to expect, what to be looking for, and then I'll, further resources. So if you suspect this, go here. If you suspect this, go here. All the information in one spot to give you a good idea of where to go next, because this is a complex topic and no two girls are the same. So, but I've met many, right? And so
Mhm.
I have a little bit of a breakdown of all of the different types of teens and types
Yeah.
of issues they're dealing with and how you can best address that, as well as how to start learning about charting if you're not familiar with it yourself and what girls can look at, and just some resources for that you can give them so that now it's not just you, someone else, me, can tell them what's going on. You know, most of the time I'm getting reached out to by the teenager, not by the parent. So they like to do their own research. They want to hear about it themselves. So if all you can do is get the information in their hands for them to go and learn about, you know, pressure's off you
Mhm.
and you've done your part. And I think that's what's being a parent. That is what being a parent is.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So we will have that link in the show notes.
Yes.
Right underneath the show notes, you'll see that link for Dani's piece. I mean, I love that you have that. It's all ready to go. Any last final words of encouragement for single parents who are, feeling overwhelmed or unsure about how to support their daughters through this?
Yes. You're raising women in a like I actually feel emotional. You're raising women in a very very difficult environment to be raising them in. Every single one of us. You cannot control all of this, but you can only control that they have the information, because I can tell you every single client I've had has said, I wish someone gave me this information, and everyone is angry about it. Like Tess, you didn't learn till
Mhm.
you were trying to get pregnant.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone is angry
right.
about it. So the biggest gift you can give them is the opportunity to hear about it. The rest you can't control, and trying to control it is going to just cause fresh problems. So just being there, being open, asking the question curiously, and giving them the resources, they will figure out the rest most of the time. And something else I want to just give you guys is, if you go ahead, if you're curious about this and you're just like, I think this is my
Mhm.
daughter, or honestly, I think this is me, right? Because this can happen to women of any age.
Yeah.
Just come talk to me. Like,
Mhm.
my Instagram is Dani Sheriff. You just come ahead, tell me parenting reset so I know who you are and
Mhm.
what you're looking for. And like, I am happy to have conversations with people about how to approach this if you have questions or concerns. And I will give you whatever resources I can come up with just to help you with your teen, because our goal is to start resolving this from the root, which is young women.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have one last question for you. What are you grateful for?
Oh, I mean, right now I'm actually on vacation in West Palm Beach and I'm
Nice.
all by
Love
myself.
it.
I don't have my toddler. It's just me alone in West Palm Beach, and I'm feeling a lot of gratitude.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's lovely. That's great. Dani, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.